This is Let's Talk Business with your host, Marc Ebinger. Now, here's Marc.
Welcome back to the Let's Talk Business podcast. In today's business roundtable, we're going to talk about using AI as a meeting assistant, entrepreneurship niching down versus going wide. We've all got opinions on that. I'm excited about getting into it. And then managing entrepreneurial anxiety. Is it stressful to be an entrepreneur? If so, why? And how do you deal with it? I'm your host, Marc Ebinger, the owner of Crewcus Virtual Staffing, a company that recruits and staffs experienced overseas administrative assistants for insurance agents who need help with policy management, claims processing, and client communication.
And I'm your co-host, Jenevy Sims with the Evolve firm, where we help business owners create marketing strategies to evolve and elevate their brand.
And my name's Emad Guirguis, owner of Simpli Bookkeeping, where we help small business owners understand their finances better, help them stay on track with their goals, and make tax season a breeze.
And I'm Desiree Serna with Philanthropic and Public Relations. I am your nonprofit guru and a high-profile publicist here in San Antonio and Texas.
Quick reminder to follow the Let's Talk Business podcast on all major podcast platforms and social media where you can catch video version of the show anytime. You can get to everything easily from our website at satalkradio.com, which, by the way, if you happen to listen to this before October 3rd, there's going to be a link to our event that we got coming up over at Project Co-Work that we've been hammering home for a while now. Got a lot of tickets sold. There's going to be a lot of people there. Probably 150 already committed to come. And we still, I mean, this is like crunch time to sell the tickets is like right now. We got about 150 tickets left to sell. A little less than that, but push.
Very excited for it.
All right, so as you guys, I've talked about it a few times that I use this thing called Plaud, P-L-A-U-D, as a note taker. And then I use ChatGPT where I put the transcript up from the note taker into it, and then I can query it anytime and ask it questions. Is anybody else here using Plaud yet? Emad, I'm surprised you haven't done it yet.
I'm very familiar with it, but I have similar setups that kind of do the same thing.
Okay, so tell me about your setup.
Sure. So our setup is mainly we have a lot of video calls that we have with our clients. And so we have an AI meeting recorder.
Yes.
And so previously we would actually have an additional assistant on the video call with us taking notes and then translating the notes into action items and things that we need to do and things we need to follow up on. But now that's been streamlined by that AI video recording software, which has made things significantly easier because it's more accurate, it's on time. It gives you marks throughout the video that tells you where those important pieces are, and it's very clean, very clear, and very precise, and it's streamlined.
Now, are you using Zoom or are you using something else for your communication?
I'm using Zoom as my communication video, and then I'm using Read right now.
How do you spell it?
R-E-A-D.
Okay, common
AI.
spelling. All right,
Yep.
So this is what I do on Zoom. So everything, there's an AI note taker that is active on Zoom.
Yes.
And that automatically creates a transcript for me. I take that transcript, put it into ChatGPT. I rename that chat the person's name. So if it was you that was on the Zoom and it's about you, then I would just name it Emad Guirguis. And then I tell ChatGPT, remember this Zoom call from October 1st, 2024, where Marc Ebinger and Emad Guirguis were talking about this. And then I just paste in the whole transcript. Once it gets done, I tell it, give me a summary of the key points of the conversation. And then were there any action items that Emad wanted Marc to do? It's all about that precise wording on the prompt.
I agree.
So you're using AI to help you with your AI.
Yeah.
There's multiples. And, actually, that's going to be one of the upcoming trends is that they're going to be taking a lot of these AIs right now and integrating them into all the different CRMs and project managements, because right now that's the gap.
Right.
That's the gap. So that's what the future trend is going on right now, where a lot of companies are going to be doing that. Like I love Fireflies. That's the one that I use. And I've used several ones to see which one gives me the most accurate note-taking, especially. And that was the one that I've liked the most, because all these other ones that I've tried, it's really hard when you're talking to people with accents. It won't transcribe it as well And then you go back and I'm more like, wait, what was that word supposed to be?
Right.
Especially if it's a key component in branding. So that was one of the challenges that I had, especially with AI. And then also, just the big terms, especially with my engineering clients. They use these technical terms, and then when it's transcribed, it's a completely different word. And I'm trying to find research on that word. So that's just one of the challenges that I've had with AI. But I love using Fireflies because it actually is the most accurate that I've found.
Is that like in competition with ChatGPT, or is it just a transcription software?
It also, that one also does engagement and also breaks down and summarizes. So that's one of the things that I like about it, is that it summarizes the main keynotes for me.
So what's missing there is the ability to query it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So that's the thing. Because when you go back and it's like, that was a 1 hour conversation, and all I needed to know was, what did Emad say? Where did he say he was from? Oh, he said he was from XYZ. Right. Mm-hmm. So that's where the power of the ChatGPT comes in. Now, getting an accurate transcript, I think, is super valuable as well. So how are you using it?
Well, I'm using AI in a different way. I'm using it for my publicity clients. So I do use it to do incredible things as well. I mean, I use AI on Zoom a lot for note taking. I cue it though. So I'm one of those, you have to learn how to speak to AI. That way it knows how to produce for you effectively. So in Zooms, I will cue it because when it's transcribed and I upload, so I use Canva. They have an incredible magic write, and it has a lot more capability than people think. It is akin to ChatGPT. And I use it again, not just for note taking. That's probably the least, usage that I have for AI, but for writing those press releases, for writing those social media campaigns, but the thing is, speaking very specific. Knowing to speak AI language is something that a lot of people have to master to use it effectively.
Yeah, it's called prompt engineering,
yes,
as I understand it, unless they're going to change the term. But yeah, so this one you're talking about in Canva, tell me about it. What is it again?
It's called Magic Write. And so it's called Magic Write. It's actually one of their newest features that they unveiled this year. And a lot of people Canva is a very easy platform for creatives to use. And it's one of those that it's available to the masses, and it has incredible capability creative-wise. But again, Magic Write is their new AI tool, and it's just incredible. The same thing that we're talking about here with Firefly and other AI type of programs. It's an easy access to it. I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. Canva is $12.99 a month. So it's very accessible. There's not a lot of barriers to use it. It's very user friendly. And again, this prompt engineering is something that I think a lot of business owners need to learn how to master to use AI effectively, not just Magic Write, but other platforms as well.
So how would you use Magic Write? Are you using it to record and make a transcript? Or are you taking the transcript and putting it into Magic Write?
Right, exactly.
Okay.
I put it, so I do the same thing. It's a double, you have to do it, use AI through Zoom, the AI note taker, get it transcribed. And again, I do put prompts in there as well. Make sure to take note of this and then upload it to Magic Write. Say, can you give me a summary, highlighting any points that were specified, and then send it over to client for their records.
And this is where, if the CRMs need to get on the hustle for it, because if you had that AI integrated, say ChatGPT, just for easy reference, if you had that integrated into your CRM and then on, say, Emad's contact page, then I can say, hey, this was a conversation that we had, boom, put it in there, and it accesses ChatGPT AI, but it keeps it there on your contact card for easy reference and location. That, I think, it's like I'm hungry for that to happen. I was surprised it wasn't already in there. We use Go High Level, and they're usually pretty good on the curve there.
So you're stating it in a way, in a form where you can go to a specific contact, and across all the meetings that you've had for that one person, you can search within everything.
It digests the whole thing.
I got you. Instead of just one meeting at a time. See, that would be a complete
tasks.
Game changer.
They are actually working on that is the personalized AI assistant to be able to integrate all your systems into one place. That's another thing that I heard them talking about and all these different forums to look out for. And I know that's coming real soon.
Could you tell them to hurry, please?
I know. I'm like, I need it now. I needed it yesterday.
All right, so AI is awesome. If you're listening out there, I would definitely take a look at combining something like transcription with a ChatGPT. It's an easy thing to be able to do. The free ChatGPT won't necessarily, you can't do the whole transcript because it's too many words. I've got the paid version, so it slips in pretty easy. But it's a great tool. I love using it. All right, so let's switch gears here to entrepreneurship now, niching down versus going wide. I heard a story about Nike and how when Nike first started out, they wanted to create a long-distance running shoe. That was their whole thing, was long-distance running shoe, not sprinting, but long distance. And, because the terrain's different, the amount of wear and tear on a particular shoe is different. So even the weight, because you're wearing it for longer periods of time, even the weight could be a thing. So these are the things they focused in on. So they niched down. But then, of course, now that's niching down when you're small. And then when you're bigger, then they start gobbling up. Now they're doing shirts, and you see them all over football and basketball and everything else. But what are your guys' thoughts? Emad, let me start with you. What do you think, niching down versus going wide?
Well, my personal perspective is with niching down gives you the ability to focus in on a specific, whether it's industry, skill, or area. And so when you niche down, you're focusing a lot of your efforts on that area. So for example, your marketing tactics are going to be more specified and more direct. Your service is going to have more of a higher level and professionalism just because you've got more knowledge in that area, as well as your focus in how you structure the business, like you mentioned, kind of when you're getting started. Now, Nike is a huge, huge company, but if we're talking directly to the small business owner industry, I think niching down is important because it helps you when structuring your business. It gives you that level of focus to be able to build a really good, high-quality product or service to be able to elaborate on.
Yeah, and I think it'll move more efficiently as well. So efficiency is going to be part of that. You can really specialize, you're more efficient, and you can put out a higher quality product. And if you're tooled for it, then it's going to be could be cheaper in the long run. Jenevy, what are your thoughts there?
Well, I'll start off with the pros and cons for both sides here. For the pros, if you're niching down, it's first of all, like you said, you can focus more on your product and service. There's that potential aspect there where it's easier for you to brand, get your name out there. There's more targeted market. So now you can focus on your budgets and be able to expand on that. And then you'll also have that expertise and authority in that niche.
Absolutely.
Now the cons is going to be that now you're in a smaller market range. Also, it's a higher risk if your niche becomes disrupted. What are you going to do? How are you going to pivot? But now, if you're going to go wide, the pros of that is being, of course, having that capability to have a large potential customer service base, to be able to have a more diverse portfolio, more of a diverse revenue stream, which is what we all like, right? And the resilience for market changes. But the cons for going wide is the risk of having a diluted brand, because now people are like, what is it that you do?
Exactly.
And then also the cons is, of course, having a complex organization. How do you structure your company at that point if you're going to expand? And also the higher market costs. So there's pros and cons going on both sides. But coming from an entrepreneurial point of view, we're not meant to stand still. So we start off with a niche. We're focus-driven, expand on that after, because what we're always looking for is opportunities. How can I help with the resources, talents that I have and expand on that? And that's just the entrepreneurship spirit right there. So, yeah.
Yeah, and so Desiree, there's this attitude that if I niche down, I have to say no to things, and that's going to be detrimental when really I'm looking to service anybody with a credit card. You know what I mean? It's like we're looking to make money, from wherever we can get it. So is saying no something we always have to do if it's outside, And then if so, is that good or bad?
Well, as a boutique niche firm, I could say I do have, again, a very specialized focus. And as Genevieve mentioned, it's wonderful because you have authority, you have expertise. Do you say no to everything that doesn't fit the brand of a niche market? No. I was speaking with a wonderful stylist here from San Antonio, Kirsten Thompson, and we were talking about very exclusive Balenciaga. And we discussed the collab with a brand that's a widespread brand, Crocs. And so is it okay for us to go outside of our niche market? Absolutely. Collaborations right now are where it's at. So I think it's what a business has to do if they're in the niche market is to make sure to highlight that specialty, right? To make sure that is their brand, but also be open to collaborations outside of the niche market.
Yeah, I see that too. Like in mine, of course, I'm doing virtual staffing, and I focus on insurance, independent insurance agents and brokers, but yet I get small business owners like in the trades that need an executive assistant, somebody to handle their office, so to speak. And we always say yes to those things because it's not a huge divergent from what I'm doing.
Right. It's a great secondary market. You have to have a secondary market, exactly like Genevieve said. What happens when, like for nonprofits, we saw during COVID, many nonprofits just were stopped in their tracks, just like many other organizations and small businesses. So having a secondary market really is, insurance, right, for the small business, especially if it is niche focused.
Yeah, and I would say that, of course, doing your market research on your product or service that you're going to be selling is huge. The market can take a turn, and I think diversification is important. However, we should be picking a market that is fairly safe going forward. Emad, you're in the bookkeeping space, obviously. Mm-hmm. Are you niched down? If so, how far are you niched down? What are you saying no to?
So we're niched down, and this question has actually come up quite a few times, right? We do strictly just bookkeeping. We actually don't file taxes. Now, we are skilled to the point to where we get the books for a client up to the point where it's really simple for the tax preparer to take it, review it, and then just plug in the numbers and file it. So we've been asked the question before, well, can't y'all just do it? I mean, it's like one extra step in your 50-part process.
Like
why not? Right? Why not? And so our answer to that is, yeah, it is possible, but it opens up several other questions, a lot of other avenues, and we have to put a lot more processes, rules, and structure to make sure that one extra step gets done. So although we may make a little bit more profit in, preparing the taxes, for example, in our situation, we'd rather focus on what we have and make what we have better so that we can grow in that area rather than adding an extra service. Now, to answer your question, where do we niche down? So our main niche is service-based. We do really good with service-based industries because we know how to communicate with clients in those industries to be able to help them elevate their business rather than the impact that we would have on product-based industries to help them elevate. So that's kind of where our niche is, and that's where we've found that we excel best, and that's where we've noticed that when we did niche down, our profit margins also increased because we then became more so the professionals in that area.
Okay, but let's dig into that a little bit farther. Why did your profit margins increase?
Because we found that the value that we provide is more impacted by service-based industries than product-based.
So you're able to charge more, or your processes cost less? Where did that change in revenue?
We were able to provide a better service that helped impact their business become more profitable. In return, we were able to charge more,
Gotcha.
which made us more profitable.
So you're more effective and you can charge
More value, more cost.
Which came first? Did you charge more or did you become more effective?
More effective, of course.
Sorry, I had to ask. All right,
Great
cool.
question.
Well, yeah. So, Jenevy, how have you niched down in your business?
Well, when I first started my business, we were just doing marketing and for small businesses because it was easier to get to the decision maker. They were at that point where they had, the budget for marketing. And we started off in there, but then talking to small business owners, we realized they didn't really have a brand strategy in place. And so that's how we expanded branding strategies. So not only are we providing you the collateral and the tools that you need to market, but now let's actually create a strategy that will, last and also, provide other platforms for them. And so from that point, those services were focused on small businesses. But then we saw an opportunity to help corporate clients through print and promotional. And so that was added on later on to my business a few years down the line is, okay, I was able to collaborate with all our local printers, get all these other vendors together, and that's how we were able to expand to the printing and promotional. So now I can service both small businesses and corporate clients, but the needs for them are very different. Mm-hmm. And so when I niched down specifically on branding strategies, it was focused on small business owners because they needed that guidance. And they had, at that point, they were open to, revamping or rebranding and then have my team come in there and do the actual work for them. So it's not just here's a strategy, do it on your own. No, let's, carry you through the whole step of creating the strategy, providing the collateral, and then also, helping you with all your events using all these products and different techniques.
Yeah, I can see brand strategy as a core. It's almost like financial strategy, right? They're both important, and an overall business growth strategy and all that kind of stuff. But I haven't heard much about that before I got to know you about branding strategy and the importance of it. It's something that as an entrepreneur who didn't go to business school, was a cop for 30 years, and then I'm going to go be a business owner, that would have never occurred to me, brand strategy or any of that. So what would you say to somebody who's looking to get into a business on the importance of brand strategy and budgeting for it if that's a thing?
Yes, you have to create a roadmap before you get started. So having a session with the Evolve firm will help you realize what type of roadmap you need to create to build your business to last, right? What kind of tone of voice do you want to be there? How do you want to be seen as before you even go out through the gates? Mm-hmm. You need to create that trust factor. But if your brand's not put together and you go straight out the gates and all your marketing collateral looks like it's all over the place, it's going to cost a lot more money to fix it versus having it right at the beginning. And let's say, okay, even to the smallest detail of your colors, your fonts, getting everything together, the tone is so, so important because once you start adding employees in, they're going to put their tone into it. But if you already created a structure, this is how we talk to our clients. Yes. This is how we are going to present ourselves. And you create that structure right out the gates before you even get started. You have a higher success rate than doing it when you're already in the middle of the business and then having to rebrand.
And let me just elaborate on that. It's a lot better to do it in the beginning because once you get busy and once the flow of those customers start coming in, is not the time to start coming up with processes and systems.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I think we've all figured that part out.
I just love everything you said, Genevieve. Again, there's so much of what I do is similar to Genevieve, but again, in the niche of the philanthropic realm. And I just love how Genevieve's talking about you have to establish the brand. You have to know what the brand is that your organization stands for because everything else will follow in line with the brand. And when you deviate from the brand, that's when you start compromising your niche market. So I love everything that Jenevy said. Yes, start out by knowing what you stand for first, so you can brand correctly and you can create your structure and your team based on that.
So let's talk about if somebody comes to you with a branding strategy, for a branding strategy meeting, right? They want you to do that. What are the components of that? Do they need a business coach? Do they need the financial person? What do they need? Because they may not be fully in on what they're going to end up with 2 years down the road anyway. I mean, I've been through that. I started out wanting to be in the Facebook and Instagram advertising space. And then if I would have done a branding strategy then, it would have been like, okay, well, that was a waste because I don't like that. I didn't even know what I liked yet. I was figuring it all out. That's kind of my personality type. So how would you help someone like me, who's pretty much all over the place when I'm first going, because I'm largely ignorant about business?
You're the best type of client there. Anytime anybody's ever sat in a branding session with me, they walk away and they're like, I didn't even think of half of that stuff. And most of the time when they're coming to me, some of them have a business plan in mind. Some are already in the middle of their business plan. But the best part about it is really, for me, and this is kind of where we stand out as a company, is really getting to know why they're doing what they're doing and how do we highlight that. Because there's so many, as business owners, we need to think about our process, we need to think about our employees, our structure. But when we sit down and talk together, and I have a list of questions, I get down to pretty much the skeleton of all of this and find out why you're doing what you're doing. Because if I can pull that passion back out, then we can start creating a roadmap. Because if let's say, you wanted to start out with doing just Facebook and Instagram because that's what you heard, those ads work. Well, let's talk about your industry first. Let's talk about your target audience. Let's go through these tools and let's say what, the data says.
Preach.
Exactly. Thank you. There's so much tools out there to pull this for you. So you're not over here. I have a lot of clients in the beginning when I first started my business that said, I want to start this business. I said, great. Who do you want to target? Who is your target audience? Everybody. How big is your budget? Okay. Well, that's not going to work. Let's go ahead and pull all this data based on what we've talked about. And I do it right then and there and show them the reality. Okay, so if this is what we have and this is your profit margin, and we break it all down. And at that point, they walk away with so much knowledge and realization that, hey, what I have, the idea that I have, not only is it a good one, but there's so many resources that can actually make this work. And there's other people that I've heard, go to other people and other companies, and all they hear is negative. No, you can't do that. No, you're way too far, too far gone. Can't fix your brand now. I've heard many times that has happened. And so not only are we creating solutions, we're creating steps. Now, you can have us do the rest of it with you, or you can do it on your own, DIY. But at the same time, it's when you're spending time with us, we're coming into the realization, the facts that your idea has value. You have value. You have worth. And you have a great idea that can help a lot of people. So let's get this started.
How do you get that in front of entrepreneurs, that message? Because if they don't know about it, right, then I think you're doing them a disservice by not telling them. But how do you go about getting that message out? Or, I mean, Desiree, how would somebody even know to think about getting a branding strategy? Where does that come from? Is it taught in business school? I mean, where do we figure that out unless we come across Jenevy?
And it's true. I think there are, and what I do as a platform is I look to see what conferences are out there, what mixers and networking opportunities are out there. How can I get myself out there to the community? That way I can meet. I like doing the personal shaking hands and actually meeting someone in person and letting them know what my expertise is. Because when you mention it, people do say, what is that? and you get the opportunity. Branding, strategy branding is not something really that you want to go and kind of crowd mentor, right? You want to maybe get the message out of this is what it is, again, maybe at a conference. But I believe, like Jenevy says, you want to get dedicated sessions with clients. You want to give them that clarity of what's their why. That helps them to realize what their branding is, what's their why, who's their market. And you really do need a professional to help you make sense and give you the clarity that you need to realize effective branding, strategy branding.
And I think that, and by the way, I think the way you worded that, I hadn't heard it called strategy branding. I've heard branding strategy, but actually strategy branding sounds a little bit more clear to me on what that might be. It's not just a strategy session, it's a strategy branding session.
Yes.
Which I think is kind of cool. Good wording on that, by the way.
Thank you. I know. I heard Howie use return on impact at his. So I love here that we're all getting some good
we're
terminology.
taking your stuff and we're using it for ourselves.
Do it. Absolutely.
Rip
Do
off and
it. I love
duplicate.
it.
So that's the challenge out there to the listeners is if you don't know about strategy branding, then go find it because it can save you a lot of headaches, a lot of hassle. Someone like Jenevy would be perfect, obviously, to sit down and get that. Do you charge for a session like that? If so, what's that look like?
So if they just wanted to implement it themselves or bring that knowledge to their internal team and have them do it, there's a small fee for that. But if it's something they're going to partner with us, then it's all included in it.
I think one of the tricks there, I was thinking about, we got this event coming up, but I don't know, how you want them to actually value what it is. They have to understand it and value before you would want to have a sit down with somebody like that. Otherwise, they're wasting time and you're wasting time. So it's getting in front of somebody who's fairly well educated to actually consume what it is you're talking about.
Surprisingly, it starts off with a marketing conversation. And from there, it sparks the fact that, hey, we need to analyze and see where you're at. Is that something you're interested in? And that's how that conversation starts.
Excellent. All right, well, let's shift gears to managing, since we're talking about all the stuff we don't know, right? Managing entrepreneurial anxiety. Being an entrepreneur is a cool idea. I think even kids and everybody's got their dream about what they want to do. I think being a professional football player, you're an entrepreneur. I mean,
Yes,
you have to
you are.
market yourself,
Absolutely.
or being a celebrity, definitely an entrepreneur there, especially with the opportunities that come with the influence that is garnered by both of those.
They are an
positions.
enterprise. Absolutely.
Absolutely. And I think that's cool. Even college football these days now, they can actually
They have the
marketing.
capability now. Absolutely. They open NCAA, they opened that up, right?
Yeah, and that's a good thing. But with that comes stressors. There's demands on your time. There's things you don't know, right? You don't know what you don't know until you know. So what are your thoughts, Emad, we'll start with you on the stressors that come with entrepreneurship. Where have you struggled personally when you started out your journey?
Well, my journey, so I graduated engineering school. I think that was a fantastic way to set me up for knowing there's going to be a lot of sleepless nights, whether it was engineering or through being an entrepreneur. But through being an entrepreneur, there's advantages, there's pros and cons, like we all know, right? But in the beginning, it definitely does take a good grind on you. I mean, you're working probably nonstop for quite a while. I know they always say, oh, you're your own boss, you can take as much time as you'd like off. And although that statement may be true, but you have to have time to take that time off. And that's what
and
lacks
money,
there.
right? You gotta do something when you're off, right? Hey, baby, you want to take off? Well, let's go to the park and throw a Frisbee.
My boss says no.
Yeah. So I think in the beginning, it's really important to at least have that vision in mind and know what your purpose is, because that's really that why that keeps you going, especially in the beginning. I think that's really important because although, yes, there are going to be times where you're working weekends, you might work 7 days a week, multiple weeks in a row, you might work and naturally you'll probably they say 9 to 5 is a struggle. Well, wait till you become an entrepreneur. Then,
right?
then it's 6 to 6 or 6 to maybe even longer.
Yep.
So there's the facts there. But the advantage of it is once you do get something built up, then you have a support system. You might have employees that help you out, team members, managers. They kind of take the load off your plate, and so now you're not just all by yourself. Right. You've got a team, you've got support. You're all kind of distributing that stress, that work, and that's kind of where the advantages kind of come in.
So you didn't hit on where you struggle the most, but I got from your conversation that it was time. Is that
Yes.
was your big thing?
And in the beginning too, like you also mentioned it, time and money. So if you are a business or you're a business owner that's going to self-fund, well, a lot of times what happens, and we know this, is you'll have a job, and then this may start out your actual entrepreneurial journey may start as your side gig, and so you're working your normal job, and then in your extra free time, then you're working on your side hustle, right? And then as your side hustle starts to get bigger and bigger and bigger, and then you may be self-sufficient, then you may let go of that 9 to 5, that other job, whatever the case may be. So it's going to be a double-sided part
Double-edged
there.
sword there.
Double-edged sword for a little bit.
So time and money, I got that from Emad. Desiree, what about you?
Well, time, of course, I think is one of the most precious commodities that we have on this world, right? So I will say awareness is something that the entrepreneur has to know. They have to be aware of themselves. They have to have that emotional intelligence to know, when they need a break, when are they feeling burnout, when is it, work-life balance not balanced. I've only known I've known entrepreneurship my entire life. I was born in it. So I like to say I don't really have too much anxiety because I've been around it my entire life. So, but I will say we have to be aware of what tips our work-life balance. We have to know, okay, and it might be okay. There's some times that I'm grinding, I'm working 12 hours a day. I'm working, 3-day weekends, but you have to be aware of, okay, am I being tipped over the edge here where I might experience some burnout, where I'm getting to unhealthy anxiety? I will say, entrepreneurs, they may experience some degree of anxiety. That's just a human, emotion. But knowing when it's unhealthy anxiety is when an entrepreneur really has to master.
Right, because it impacts you negatively when you get into that anxiety state. Your decision making becomes less effective, right?
Yep.
Your ability to seek
Less
out
clear.
new information, less clear. And making decisions under stress is something that I've always been good at. As a cop, you make them under stress quite a lot. But
stress and anxiety are two different things.
Okay, so that's fair enough. So what's the difference in your mind?
So stress, I'm always complimented. They say, Desiree, how do you handle, you thrive under stress? Absolutely. I will thrive under stress. It's very easy for us to do that. We get adrenaline rush. You do not get an adrenaline rush from anxiety. It does quite the opposite from you. It discombobulates an individual. So to me, I think stress really can be a strength for a lot of individuals. Anxiety, even if it's, again, not at an unhealthy level, it still does not give you that clarity. It's distracting. So those are two different, again, emotions that stress, I've seen a lot of individuals thrive underneath. They absolutely, they don't just know how to how to handle, they thrive in it. Anxiety, I will say, I can't recall an individual that thrives on anxiety.
So
I
what's
love
the
that.
difference between
Yeah.
the two? I mean, define anxiety.
That's a great anxiety. I would say you're unclear, you're unfocused, you are not at ease, and that really doesn't give you clarity. It doesn't give you the clarity to work effectively. So that's how I would describe it: being very unfocused, being nervous, being not confident. All of that is the emotions that you go through with anxiety. And with stress, it's a totally different experience depending on how the individual copes with stress.
So stress can be external, Anxiety is definitely internal.
Yes.
But stress can also be internal. So this is what I'm trying to clarify is the difference between internal stress, because you're under stress, versus anxiety. Is there a tipping point now? You've been under stress and now you've tipped over into anxiety, which is maybe an uncontrollable emotional response to stress.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head. You just said external stress is one thing. So if you're dealing with an event or if you're dealing with a campaign or, something that's acute and you are having stress on the external part, that, again, some people thrive in that element. But when it starts impacting your internal person, that is when it becomes, you have to be self-aware. You have to know, okay, this is I need support because it's internally impacting me the way anxiety internally impacts an individual.
Yeah, some of the symptoms, the emotional symptoms, irritability, frustration, frequent feelings of dread. You might have some sleep problems, fatigue, or headaches. And then like how it can manifest. And I've experienced this too, because I'm a guy. I think we procrastinate more than, than the average person. But procrastination and avoidance of tasks, it's avoiding confronting that thing that's giving us the anxiety. So Jenevy, what are your thoughts?
Well, I was not raised in an environment an entrepreneurship environment, actually. How I got into it was pure accident and something I was not ready or prepared for. So when I first started off, it actually is still an emotional roller coaster. Oh, yes. One day you get that client and you're on top of the world, right? I got this. And then the next day, literally a day or even a minute, something happens. You're like,
yes,
back down where you feel like you're rock bottom. So every day, it's a constant challenge. That's why only certain people are built for entrepreneurship. And you'll see it. Because when things happen, how do you react? And so when you talk about the difference between anxiety and stress, I think that's so beautifully put. Anxiety is more of a, kind of a reaction to the stress. Stress is going to happen. And I think we all learned and developed that early on in school. Stress. Projects are due. Last minute, now we're going to thrive, urgency, right? Yeah. We're at school, we need that A. So I usually waited till the last minute the night before, and I wrote the best essays the night before. So I am one of those people that thrive in stress, but anxiety manifests itself when I don't prioritize. For me, as a mother, as an entrepreneur, if I don't prioritize, it feels like so much is coming together and I can't see clearly. And that fog for any entrepreneur is so dangerous.
Yes.
Because some people will just be like, this is it, this is done. But there's some people that say, okay, just close your eyes, let's prioritize. What's first? My family, they need time. Okay, I'm gonna delegate an hour over here. And just stepping away from that situation for a second can give clarity for the rest.
Yeah, I have to pull myself. I have to unplug from work sometimes.
Yes.
Saturday is kind of the day that I'm doing that these days. It's like I just totally unplug. I try and stay away from everything. I say totally, right? I say 95% unplug, and I try and stay away from it. Meanwhile, Jennifer's over there doing stuff, and she's asking me questions. I'm like, no, I want to take Saturday off, right?
Yeah.
But yeah.
And I'm going to elaborate on that a little bit more because, yes, it is inevitable that a lot of entrepreneurs are going to go through anxiety just through the process because it's part of the journey. But a big thing that does get a lot of entrepreneurs through is just what you said, and I'm actually going to elaborate on it. So when they do get bogged down and they're just overwhelmed and they want to shut down, the best thing to do is just reevaluate exactly what it is that's putting them in that state of anxiety. Write it down. Yes. Figure out, okay, how detrimental or how important is this really? Okay, and then write everything down and then look at that list for a minute and then say, okay, is this really worth all the anxiety that I'm going through? And yes, it's probably going to be important. And so then it's listing it out, okay, 1 through 10 that you have to do, however many items there are on the list, and then start to pre-plan for those items. And then you're going to notice that your anxiety is going to slowly simmer down a little bit because now you have an idea, because a lot of that anxiety comes from also not knowing. You know something's due, but you're maybe not sure, okay, how bad is it really?
or how you're going to
Right.
do it.
That's
So
good.
there's this phrase. It's called the fear of the thing is often worse than the thing itself,
Right. Absolutely.
which is so true. And then there's another one is how do you eat an elephant?
Yes.
One bite at a time.
Yep.
Right.
All right.
So it's just calm down, right? You're still going to eat today. You know what I mean? You're still going to have your electricity on. I said, everybody chill out. So Jenevy, you mentioned like, losing a client, gaining a client, and that whole experience, right? Of course, yeah, I'm sure all of us have probably dealt with that at some point,
yes.
right? Especially early on when you're trying to keep the lights on, right? And those things hit a bit harder. But then also understanding that as long as you're doing outflow, you're doing the right things to get yourself out there so you can get new clients and so forth, that they'll come. And if you're providing a good service, that they'll continue to come. So that's perspective.
Yeah,
We
trust in the
have to
process.
maintain perspective there.
Yeah.
Right.
And not panic, right? Throwing the baby out with the bathwater. There's another one, right?
Right, exactly. Well, this is what I always say about entrepreneurship. With entrepreneurship, sometimes you're eating steak and sometimes you're eating bologna.
Yeah, spam, right? Back in the
Right.
day.
Yes, I love spam. We're from Hawaii, though.
Yeah, it's like hot dogs. I don't want to know what's in it, all right? I just
Right.
want
It
to
just
eat the
tastes
hot
great.
dog.
Exactly.
It just tastes great. But I think one of the things that, a lot of entrepreneurs don't understand too is that emotions, it's okay to have emotions, because a lot of people are like, take the emotion out of it. But that actually does tie in. It's just knowing how to manage those emotions.
I call that entrepreneurial, Entrepreneurial emotional intelligence.
Yes.
Emotional intelligence is so important, but when you're an entrepreneur, you have to have entrepreneurial emotional intelligence.
Absolutely.
Emotional intelligence is not just reading other individuals and knowing how to communicate. It's also internalizing and understanding your own emotions as well, and how to manage those emotions. So
Right.
how to intelligently manage them.
Using it as a superpower, especially for the women entrepreneurs that are listening out there. I mean, when I first started my business, there was a lot of people that said, take your emotions out of it. You're making decisions based on emotions. And so for the first few years, that's exactly what I was doing. But then at the same time, I felt like I wasn't being myself, because I do wear my emotions on my sleeve. But at the same time, as an entrepreneur, you have to be careful not to make decisions led by your emotion. And that's where, it helps to have that emotional support, to have that support system, to have, somebody, if they're better at HR, hire somebody else that does that for you versus you. For me, that was my internal struggle, because I want to give everybody a job and give them the opportunity. But then that cost me a lot of money because the people I was hiring was not fit for the job. But then when you partner up with someone like Mark and he can get somebody for you, then that makes my job so much easier.
Yeah, have somebody else play the bad guy, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Speaking of getting help, so having a peer group or some peers that, like, I've got some really good friends in business now. I think, the show's been really, really good for me on that and building relationships out. Well, I didn't start there, but then you get to know these folks that have been through struggles. And then when you're going through something, you feel like, hey, I can have a chat with somebody and be like, we can do it here on the show. We can do it whatever. But it's like, hey, this is where I'm struggling. How have you dealt with this kind of thing? So having peers, I think, is super important to help you realize that you're not a freak, right? This is not the end of the world.
You're not the only one.
We all feel this way at times, and but it too shall pass, as they say.
Absolutely, yes.
Here's a good one. What does it say? Because a lot of people always worry all the time. Worrying is like a rocking chair. It'll give you something to do, but it won't get you anywhere.
I like that one too. We got some great info out, I think, today. Lots of content, lots of short. I love short video content, but I liked hitting on a different subject. What did you guys think of the roundtable today?
Love it.
Loved
Positive.
Super
Love
good.
it. Love
Negative.
hearing from everybody.
Exactly.
Such great insights.
Yeah, it's a good squad. Okay, anybody want to throw anything else out there before we wrap up that we may have missed? Jenevy, I think you got some great info in today.
Thank you.
yeah.
That's what happens when
Let's
I
throw
leave
one
for 2 weeks.
one last question in there for all our listeners. So, as a entrepreneur or someone thinking about getting into business, I guess is one question we never touched up on. But the question is, should you start out in business with a open mindset in the industry that you're going to get into, or should you go in with a niched mindset?
Yeah, I think you should. Are you asking? Because I'm going to say you should go in with a niche mindset to start out, especially
To
my
start
vote.
off, absolutely, to start.
which seems so counterintuitive, right? It's like, anybody with a credit card,
It
you know what I
depends
mean?
how much time we have on the show.
But if we start off with a niche, it would be important to meet with someone and say, hey, here's what my brand is. Here's what we stand for. It's non-compromising. Here are the values. And that's where you go niche market. So you really have to define your brand.
Yeah, and talking to someone like Jenevy is going to help you understand even what questions to ask.
Yes, absolutely.
And even if you don't know the questions to ask, that's why it helps to have a professional, because they know
That's what I mean.
how to
is-
draw it out of you.
that's
I
what
call
mean.
it the conceptualization process.
Exactly.
So having a professional go and facilitate the conceptualization process, that's the tough part right there. And I think if you have a professional, you will have a strong foundation there.
Yeah, I agree. And of course, you got to have bookkeeping, right?
Gotta have your book.
The structure.
All right, guys. Well, thanks, everybody. I appreciate that conversation. As we wrap up the show, a quick reminder to check out the latest podcast and catch video versions of the show anytime by visiting our website at satalkradio.com. That's going to be it for this one. You guys have a great week, and we'll see you on the next one.
All right.
Wrap.